Physical abilities such as strength, speed, agility, endurance, and coordination are fundamental in sports. But mental abilities such as focus, concentration, motivation, confidence, resilience, and decision-making can heavily influence an athlete's performance, especially when it matters the most. If you want the mental edge in sport and life, check out the Max Out Mindset for Volleyball book and workbook or the Max Out Mindset for Softball book and workbook. A guide for coaches, athletes, teams, and parents to help you be in the best position to max out when it matters the most. Go to www.maxoutmindset.com.
You're listening to Max Out Mindset with your host, Dr. Larry Widman, performance psychiatrist and elite mindset coach to women in sports, business, and life.
Welcome to the Max Out Mindset podcast. If we haven't met, my name is Scott Papik, and one of my roles is coaching parents or caretakers the Max Out Mindset way. I'm also a father of 11-year-old boy-girl twins and coach both of their basketball teams. I have this really cool opportunity to learn from both perspectives, gaining insights into their challenges and how we, as parents and coaches, can either hurt or help their confidence. Today, I have the opportunity to do this podcast, which is led by Coach Jess Connect. What really sets Jess apart is the way that she connects and motivates her athletes and teams to max out. I hope you enjoy this episode today as we are going to learn from parents of an elite athlete.
I'm very excited to introduce to you Statia and Henry Hendrix from Scottsdale, Arizona, and they are parents of two elite leaders. And when I say leaders, they have a son and a daughter that we will learn more about. They'll share more about them. But specifically, I coached Evan here in Arizona at Revolution Volleyball Academy, her 17s season, but she played up with the 18s team. And now she's in her current season playing 18 Open, and that season is going to kick off here in the next week. But welcome to the podcast, Statia and Henry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having us. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I want to kick things off because I always like to give certain roles, and the parent plays that MVP role. And so we teach and train our athletes. Why is mindset important? But I want to know from you both, how has mindset played a role, and specifically in Evan's journey? And what importance and value did you see that start to be maybe more of a priority in her athletic journey?
So mindset really played a role for Evan because I believe it helped her be focused and present on the court, to know really what her role needed to be in that moment on the court, whether it was athlete or cheerleader or supporter. I think that mindset training, the mental toughness training, really helped set for her how she should behave in whatever the situation was that came up on the court. And that has been, I think, a critical piece to her success. So she can manage her composure, she can manage herself no matter what the situation brings, and she can be accretive for the team and not an energy drain.
Talks a lot about the controllables, and I know she's learned that from her training, her mindset training. So what are the things that are within my control? What are the things that I cannot control? And how do I respond to those things? And, she uses that language, and I know that that has come from mindset training.
And let's take it back. She just finished her senior high school season, right? Played at a very high level high school team for years. But when did club, and I want to take us back to when did she start playing volleyball? And when was club a thing that she decided, hey, parents, I kind of want to take this serious? I think a lot of our audience, especially our parents, want to know they have a child or an athlete that's interested in playing a sport, then it becomes this club option. And what is club at a young age? How is that beneficial? How do you decide what club was best for her?
Well, she started playing rec volleyball 8 years old.
Yes.
In fact, we tried to get in at our local rec place, and we had to get on a waiting list. So 8, almost 9. And then I think by age 10, the rec director said, I think you got to go to club. And so it was early for me, but I wanted her to train and to learn the right way. And really, we just went to, the first club we went to was like all her friends were going there, and that's how we chose it. That's not a good way to choose. So we were at that club 1 year, and then we found Revolution.
What I'll say is this: I don't think we ever really, in the beginning, thought about what it was to transition from rec to club. What we found was, Evan started playing recreation volleyball, and she had some skill at it, skill that we didn't really know she'd have at a very young age. But she liked the game. She always challenged herself to do more. So when everybody was serving underhand, she was dogged and determined to serve overhand when she was 9 years old. She just found elements of it that she enjoyed, which included the girls on the team. She really enjoyed the team aspect of it, but she showed this aptitude. So even in rec, they had her play up in age after a bit, where she went from where she needed to be with the 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds. They had her play with 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds. And again, it was never, wow, she's this great volleyball phenom. It was just she was having fun. And the way to keep her having fun was to keep putting her in situations that challenged her, that she enjoyed. And that's when it became clear that rec was no longer going to be something that she enjoyed. And that was age 10. So she started playing 12s in club at age 10. Again, not because that was some grand plan that she had or we had to go be some volleyball champion, but it was the way she was having fun, was to keep challenging her that way. And I think, and I'll give my wife lots of credit for this, being able to recognize in Evan when that arc of challenge started to turn down, how to go find that next thing to keep it fun for her.
So I'm going to play back what I'm hearing. So the skill set, right, challenged her, so that asked to move up a couple age groups. There was an adult or a coach that entered the scene that said, hey, we believe your daughter, the next step, a recommendation to move towards a club. So again, take us back. How in the world did you even begin to start looking at clubs and researching maybe the best club for her?
It was word of mouth.
Like I said, the first choice was not a good one because we didn't research. We just,
it was word of mouth. It was
yeah, it
word
was
of
word of
mouth.
mouth. We just
We
landed
heard.
at a club. But after one season, well, even during that one season, I was frustrated by what I saw as a lack of training, a lack of development, basic skills. I felt like we would go to a tournament and there'd be all these opportunities to try to, learn and grow and teach. And then we get back in the gym and it'd be the same practice, as before. So there wasn't. So I was starting to look at other coaches and other clubs during that first season of 12s. And I identified some coaches. My husband used to tease me because one of them always had a clipboard and was always writing things on the clipboard. And I thought, she's taking notes about what's happening on the court. And in my mind, you're going to use those notes for some purpose, And so I really was looking for coaches that were going to, really be teaching. And so we did make a change after 12s. And it was not easy because, Evan was like, she had her besties and that was her real motivation. And so, we had to do some parent kind of things to get her to understand, but it worked out well. And so then we made the change. And the first coaches that we had at Rev, I give them a lot of credit. They were great with the kids that age, but they were also teaching. And so it was a great transition for us.
And I want to loop in Scott here, and the reason why we're being very basic with this is because clubs and finding the right club is very, very important. And does it align with your core values? Does it align right with the skill sets, the technique that's being taught at the appropriate age level? And we can both all admit, no club is perfect, but what is the best for your athlete or your son or daughter? And so, Scott, what are your thoughts too, as you are a coach, you are a parent, you work on our team and in the mindset world? Do you have anything to add or anything to call out?
There are two things that really stood out to me. So can I go back a little bit? Were you athletes at all?
No.
Okay, so now I'm really curious on your husband gave you some love there by saying, give her the credit for understanding she needed challenge. So how did you have that awareness that a 10-year-old would need that extra challenge that led you to go, I think sports is the way for her right now?
I'll say that Evan was always very agile. As a toddler, she could do things that I hadn't ever seen a toddler do. She was so strong.
She would fall into push-ups at 18 months. Like she did push-ups and did like cartwheels
She would
at
climb
18 months.
things. And then in primary school grades, first, second, third, fourth, she won every event at the little field days. She would just run faster than any kid. Sixth graders, she was beating the boys. So she always exhibited that athleticism. And then, rec, we could just tell that it was becoming a little bit boring. And then if we happened to see some volleyball, older girls, she was fascinated by it. And a really good example is that serving. She was like, it's not real volleyball to serve underhand. And she was 9. And the coaches were like, well, she was insistent on it and so proud of herself to be able to serve overhand. And I don't know that anybody else was serving overhand. So it was things like that. And it just was important for us that she develop in the right way. And so I think so it was the challenge and then the proper training that we were most interested in.
I'll chime in and add to that. So though at the club level, what we began to see that first year was that she wasn't progressing. So you had this kid who was so into it and was wanting to serve overhand and found out she could jump really high, and that was great. But middle of the season, that 12's year when she was 10 years old, and certainly towards the end of the season, she just wasn't better, right? We could see there was untapped physical potential there, and she just wasn't tapping into it. She wasn't being asked to tap into it. And we had seen higher level volleyball at her age level, so we knew that there was more. And so I think that also helped motivate the search for, where is she going to be able to tap into that piece of herself, shift into that higher gear that we knew was there.
I want us to really wrap our minds around, right, as we discuss this, is you have a high level kiddo, you recognize those characteristics at a young age, you're trying to provide, whether it be in sport or outside of sport, opportunities for her to grow and excel. When I think of the Hendrix family, I always think of excellence. You do everything with excellence. And one of my biggest things at that young age, when did you start to see maybe the perfectionist in her come out? There's a competitor, but there's also this perfectionist that comes with that elite athlete or that competitor. At what age did you start to see that come to surface, and how did she deal with it?
I would say early on, Evan had a desire to excel. I don't know if I'd call it perfectionism per se, and I'm certainly not a psychologist. The clinical definition of perfectionism may be different, but it was never to a disadvantage. It was never destructive. It wasn't working so hard at something and failing and then bombing out. but she has always had a very strong work ethic. She wants to get things right. She wants to do it. But I've also seen in my daughter this ability to really be able to let go of things. And so that's why I don't really want to call it perfectionism. I think she has a drive to achieve. I think she has a drive to excel. I think she has a drive to be the best Evan she can be. But I also think she has a fail-safe switch that allows her to back off and give herself some grace. Stacia, I don't know if you'd agree with that or not.
Well, she calls herself a perfectionist. I mean, she uses that language. Um, and but it's very interesting. She is not hard on herself when she makes a mistake in volleyball. She can let it go. She moves from point to point without any problems. Every once in a while, there will be a game where she'll say, I did not play well. And that's more overall, not any specific points, but it's just, and especially in school ball, there's a lot of pressure. I mean, for her, if she's doesn't play well, usually they're right, there goes the team. So she did not take all losses on her back, but every once in a while she would say, I didn't play well. So I agree with Henry, but she uses that term, and I've heard her use it before, and I heard her use it with Jess. So that's just how she's identifying whatever it is that she feels.
Can I pop in here real quick?
Yeah.
So I heard something that me and my daughter talk about a lot. So just at this time, she's one of the best players on the team, and she has a very high standard for herself, and she's got the motor. Not everyone's like that, and that's okay.
Right.
At this age, that's okay. How is she able to manage that when she's around other teammates that might not go all in as she does?
Yeah. Well, truth be told, Evan was 14, starting her 16th year, and she came to us and she had some concerns about the team and the makeup of the team. And I think somewhat too about the coach. And that's when she started her mindset training. I had been exposed to a woman, and it was that exactly that some of these things are so out of your control, like who shows up for practice, who works hard, how the coach designs the roster, the play, these things that you can't control, and how is it that you are able to be in that space, still be kind to your teammates, supportive of them, humble. How do you continue to do that and not, get yourself irritated and, go down that rabbit hole? And that has been one of the main things that she's been able to do. And she honestly has great affection for, I would say, 99.9% of the teammates that she has had in all these years. She has great affection for. She accepts people where they're at. And I think she does have higher expectations of her club teammates. But for school ball especially, she is beloved at that school because the worst player on the team thinks that they are her bestie. The player who never plays, she gives that girl a high five, just like, the setter that she adores. So the mindset training has just been huge for that piece. Huge. Really helped her.
And mindset training is very important. And I could teach my little ones to be just weapons on the court, but I'm their dad. So I've got that playing against me.
You know what? People say to us, they say, oh, she's a great volleyball player, but she's such a nice girl. And that for us is the most important Because, there's a lot of athletes, young athletes, and they have a little bit of swagger or whatever, and the kids don't necessarily think they're nice. So I really appreciate having a daughter who's kind, to others. I think that's most important.
Scott, you just said something around about your daughter and how your dad, and sometimes it's difficult delivering the message. I think that's something Station and I learned early on. There are some messages that we should be delivering, and there's some messages we should not be delivering, right? We don't need to be the ones going over what she does play by play, because as she has told me many times, can you do this? My response is no.
No.
My expertise at volleyball ended when I stopped being one of her rec coaches. I was one of her early rec coaches, not later. Um, so therefore, there's those messages I don't need to deliver. I'm not the one to deliver them in the way that she can hear them. Her coach, her Jess, her John, her Carl, the coaches she currently has, those are the coaches who give that kind of direction. Station and I are different kinds of coaches. We coach the girl, we coach the player that's about to step on the court, but it's not our role to coach the player on the court. That's not our role.
Okay.
So how do you know when you're doing it right?
A couple ways. A, she's still talking to us.
That's 100% a great sign. I know that.
Yeah. The feedback that she gives us, yeah. And the part of it is art, so you feel it in your gut. Sometimes you do feel like, oh my gosh, I overstepped. I said something and she wasn't prepared to talk about it, and it's kind of out of my lane, right? So there's that gut feeling you get. But there's the other piece too, especially with Evan in particular as a person. The more comfortable Evan is, the more Evan will say. So if Evan is not wanting to have the conversation, if it's not hitting correctly, guess what? You're not having that conversation. It's shut down. And I get that. It's not my place. It's not the time. It's not the subject. It's not whatever. But that feedback from her is key.
When she was younger, your question about car rides, Evan has always driven the car ride conversation. And Henry and I are at every tournament, we don't miss anything. So we're always in the car together. And our son's been out of the house for 6 years. So this is, we had lots of car rides in silence on when she was younger. And it would be either she didn't want to talk, or she just was tired, or she was eating or whatever, but we let her drive it. And if she didn't talk, he and I might be talking about something else, groceries or whatever, but we never pressed her about what happened in the games. Now she does talk more, but we still let her lead. So if she starts talking about what's happened in the games or coaches or whatever, we engage. But we're always a little like, we have to let her lead and then we follow. Let her lead, then we follow. We don't press. But she talks more now. I mean, she's almost 18, but we get more of that now. But I think it's because we kept our mouths shut when she was younger.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is you created psychological safety within your family, like the car ride, whether it's in the living room, the car ride, or on the side of the court, like you've created that safe space. And what I'm also hearing didn't happen overnight.
No.
Right. So but you had enough awareness to realize pretty early on, like she's got to be the one that starts this conversation, because the car ride is the scariest place for kids.
I think something that has guided us through this piece, I think Stacia and I very early on decided that Evan's volleyball journey has nothing to do with us. We do not need to manage her. We do not need to tell her what to do on the court so that she looks good, so we look good. Like, it is separate from us, because at any moment volleyball could be taken away for whatever reason, and we will still have a 17-year-old daughter, 18-year-old daughter, whatever-year-old daughter And none of that will change. None of that will, nothing. It should just want to be playing volleyball. And so by deprioritizing what volleyball means and is, and allowing her to engage in it the way that works best for her, like we don't have the we don't have the need to be all up in her business as we've heard off the court. Right? She can explore and do and experience and have this thing that's hers that she invites us into. And that has been the thing that's led us as parents with her. Invite us in. We're there all day. We'll be the loudest ones and the clappingest ones in the building. But that's because you've allowed us in. Um, and we want her to allow us in, so we do things to make sure that happens. But it's at the end of the day, it's not about us. So the car ride home doesn't have to be hard because it's not our experience, it's hers.
Yeah. And you brought up one more thing is, I don't know if you asked her this, but she says she allows you to cheer on. I always like to ask parents, who does your athlete want you to be before the game, during the game, and after the game? My daughter wants me to sit in the corner and not clap. She will find me when she needs me. Did you have to ask her, like, hey, who do you wants to be? Or because you said she let you in, is that something she told you, like, hey, rock it out on the sidelines, like bring all that energy, or you just kind of felt it?
Well, we're both big cheerleaders, and we cheer forever, but we cheer for every girl on the team. We cheer that name. And so, I think in the beginning, Henry gets a little wild, but it's always positive. And the girls like it too. She's not ever been one to, shush the cheering. Now she'll shush some other things, but the cheering, she likes it. And she tells us now, really, she doesn't even hear it. Mm-hmm. So I think she just came up with hearing him, yell and scream, and then it's just become a part of, what happens, and she's good with it. But the other girls tell us that they like it.
Aegis, it's a good energy. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And we're going to stay on this topic because I really like to know, you have an older daughter that's going to graduate in May, and she'll report to TCU there in Texas, and she will begin her college journey as a student athlete. But how important is a value system, right? The Hendrix family has a value system, and it sounds through our conversation so far that you've really started to incorporate that, right? It's her journey. There's boundaries given for parent and athlete. Can you maybe help us understand as parents, how did you figure out what your value system is? And then how did that weave into the journey that Evan chose, which part of her journey is volleyball? Another part could be social and whatever she sets her heart to. But how do you come up with your values, and how did you bleed that into her journey?
Well, no, if the value conversation was a specific explicit conversation, I think as a family, we have a pretty good set of values when it comes to kind of knowing who you are, being vulnerable, being open to conversation, knowing that we as the parents are here to support. So I think that's just something that we've intrinsically done. I think, though, for Evan, especially going into college, we are being more explicit about not just remember who you are, but know that this opportunity is one that can open up lots of doors for you. The whole volleyball is a key to a bunch of other stuff that's going to happen to you in life. And if you value that key and manage it appropriately and treat it well, those opportunities will come. If you lose that key, opportunities will still come, they'll just be different. And so that's the conversation that we're having with her now, is know who you are, know your value, know what you're holding, keep your eye on that, and allow it to pull you through. And at that point, though, that's where we as parents, again, this is that coaching thing, especially now since she's older, we can't live her life. We have to give her the ability to do that stuff and make the mistakes she's going to make, but also get those wins that she's going to get. So that's kind of where we are. Stacia, I know you can add to that.
Well, yeah, I don't know that we've had that specific conversation about values, but Henry and I have tried to model for our kids what it looks like to work hard, to deal with failure, to deal with the hard stuff in a way, how you treat people, your friends, your teammates, your coworkers. We've just tried to model that. And, our kids are very different, but I am most proud that they're good humans. And so I think without saying, that's what we were trying to model, be kind to the people around you, work hard, bring your best. Sometimes you can't worry about what other people are doing, your coworkers, your teammates. That's their journey. And Evan would say probably we learn to be a little bit more strict, but she's 17 now and a senior. The doors have opened a little bit more, but she has a better understanding of why there were a lot of no's on certain things, especially getting to high school. But I'll always be grateful to volleyball because in club season, there's always like a 7:30 a.m. practice on Saturday morning, and we value rest and sleep. And so, she's ready. And is she going to be perfect? Absolutely not. She will make mistakes, but we've also modeled with our son. We will be there to help you when things fall apart, because they do. And so I'm real excited for her. I think she's ready, and it's gonna be a good transition.
The impact and role parents play in their own behavior and as examples either helps or hinders a child's journey.
100%.
So Evan has had numerous accolades. We won't read the list, but we'll give some high-level ones. She was part of the national team development program at a young age. She has played on very successful championship-level teams within the highest division of USA Volleyball in the Open Division. She's received numerous top state awards, national awards. How do you as parents not get wrapped up in that success and achievement and noise, right? And how do you help your daughter, an athlete who's so elite and wants to be excellent, right? She's a competitor. How do you keep her true to your true values as a family and as a great human?
One of the things I think has really helped both of our kids is that, number one, Henry and I were not athletes. And so, it's great. Everybody loves to win. But there's always going to be losses too. But the other thing that's been very helpful is that we're old parents. I mean, we are. So we've been banged around a little bit in our own lives. We've had huge successes in our careers, but we really know that all of that is great. Lots of awards and promotions and all that, but that is not sustaining. That's not your true joy or what makes you feel good at the end of the day. And I'm so, Evan is happy as the next person to receive some accolade, but she's not wound up in it. Sometimes I think I'm a little bit more than she is. She's happy if she gets it, but if she doesn't, oh well. So, but I think we also model that stuff is fleeting and sometimes arbitrary. We can't control it. And so we can't have that be our value.
I'll add to that. I'll add to that. So it's not just what we specifically help her with, but she's had all these great accolades and she is a great athlete and all that neat stuff. but she has recognized her own struggles in this game. I mean, she is a 5'9" outside hitter who does amazing things and can change the flow on the court. But some of those same institutions that give her accolades also ping her for being undersized and 5'9". And so, what I think Evan has developed and still is developing is this real sense of self. Like, accolades are fleeting. They come and they go, and they may not even matter in a couple of years. But what matters is what I bring today and what I show you today and how I surprise you today because you've thought of me one way and I can really do this other thing. Her her sense of self is developing, and I think she has had the beginnings of some not the word's not conflict. She's had some beginnings of pushback by the world that she's having to work through. But I think that's sharpening her. It's making her tougher. The things that she knows she can't control. She is not going to grow past 5'9". What she can control is what she brings to the court, how she thinks about it, and how she pushes off some of those limitations brought on by others.
Was it hard to watch her work through some of that struggle?
I'm going to say yeah, but not hard, like difficult and put into a depression, but hard because, there are some things that she is not invited to. There are some opportunities she's not invited to, not because she's ever done anything poorly, but just because she doesn't fit a profile. And that's okay. That's okay. It is what it is. I mean, there are lots of things in life where you're going to be judged and assessed before anybody really sees who you are. They're going to make assumptions about what you can do. And that's okay because it's a life lesson. And what she takes out of it is probably more important than the invitation would have been. So I think it's just a progression, and all we can do is be there to support and help as parents.
I hit on that because I've seen a lot of parents not recognize that and not be mindful of maybe the situation, the physicality, maybe the sport or position demands. How can you give some advice to some parents that are maybe in this journey? How did you both become so mindful? And the sport is a reality, and recruiting, that recruiting journey is a reality. Her going to transition into college plays a reality. How did you both understand your awareness to be that role, to let her struggle, but also that you didn't become overbearing and try to fix things? And I think every good parent wants to fix or help, but how did you learn your boundaries?
It's a journey. So maybe 3 years ago, I wasn't as solid in it as I am now. So I've also gotten better. I do remember feeling angst and anxious, when college coaches started coming around and, um, you know, I had to talk myself down the ladder a few times. But I never wanted her to get more anxious because of what I was feeling or what I was, seeing as a problem, or that she wasn't getting her due, or so we grown a lot in this process as well. And you know what? I have a lot of compassion for parents of athletes that are more average, or, more that are, trying to get play time or trying to make the team, because it's hard. I've never had to have that struggle of, will she make the team or will she play? She's always made the team. She's always been a starter. So I feel for parents in that position, because again, it's out of your control. And the more you try to control it, the more you get labeled like you're a little kooky or you're difficult, but they have the same feelings that everyone else has too. They're just not able to manage it. And so I think we've been lucky in that way. We make the decisions for and with Evan, and we don't have to worry about how will this impact her, like other parents do. So I do appreciate that.
the balance, the hard balance is how do you get your child to know who they are and challenge what people might think about their ability, right? To push the envelope. You know, you're 5'9", you need to be a libero, not an outside. How do you get them to have enough confidence in themselves to keep going towards that goal? Like, right? And if they touch 10-4, right? Then keep going forward. But then also to hit the reality of like, oh, okay, maybe there is a time for a shift in the role that you play. Like that is the balance as parents, that especially as they get older and move through the system and they keep facing those challenges, oh, Evan should be a setter. She has great hands. She's not going to be 6'1", so she should be a setter. Well, I mean, those are conversations we've had, but those not a decision we made. She continued to be a hitter. So it's that sort of like constant evaluation of what inputs are you getting, but where do you really like objectively see your child? Not where you want them to be, but like where are they objectively, to then know how to make a decision, because one day there may be a change that's required because the game has changed. And so allowing yourself that flexibility and that ability to learn on the fly based on where your child actually is, and not where you think they should be, but where they actually is part of this dance that I think we've done as parents, and I think most parents will have to do with this game.
I'm going to take it back to the 4 C's of the elite mindset. And as we train our athletes, that first C is commitment. And what does that commitment look like with what you've been given? And whether that would be the physical stature, right? Now you're seeing more of coaches and programs teach that mental state, that commitment to, I can control what I can control. That is a commitment in itself. And I think as parents too, we're offering some opportunities as we're letting you in on what we're teaching your athletes. The second C is confidence, right? Evan's grown in that. Evan provides confidence. I think the third C is concentration, and the fourth is composure. And as we start to work with clubs and parents, you both have been a part of a couple of parent presentations through the club that she's at. How has that shaped your understanding of how important mindset is? But how well does it play with on the court, ultimate trust, team experience, right? Relational. We've all played a game of volleyball to have fun. Sometimes we forget about that. But what are your thoughts on seeing that incorporated mindset within Evan's journey over the last couple of years?
Well, I gotta tell you, the impact of this training on her team last year. I mean, we've been with the same families, the same girls for the most part, several years, 4 years. We had a couple of new additions, but what those girls were able to do and the changes that they were able to incorporate from the beginning of season, just practice, pre-tournament, to the first couple of tournaments through nationals was nothing short of amazing. I mean, to see them go from a little bit of distrust, some sulking behavior, pouting here and there, to full acceptance, whether it be role acceptance or acceptance of their teammates and their shortcomings, their ability to work through, problems on the court, to work through adversity, come back from being down to take over a match, come back in a third. There was a time where that team, we did not win if it went to a third set. We just didn't win. And they were able to overcome that. So I do see a huge impact on her prior team, these 4 Cs. It will be interesting to view it now this year, taking a new team, a lot of girls who have not yet played together, to see where this can take a team that is less familiar. The teammates are less familiar with each other going in. There are some parts of it that have known each other a long time. Evan is really new to all of them as teammates. So it will be interesting to see how the mindset training works for a newer team. but it definitely was impactful for her old team.
And I think switching the lens back to parents, I think you all exposing us to the mindset training, or at least the structures, the learning structures, helps us with communication, right? So it's more than just the lingo, to say confidence and commitment, but to really understand what she's working on under that umbrella. That helps us then be supportive for her on and off the court because we have some glimpse into the language that she's learning. So, as her support network, it's great that we're also kind of brought in to the conversation.
And Scott, you were co-author of the workbook, and book for Mindset for Parents. What are your thoughts as we have Henry and Statia on as being the recipient of learning that knowledge of what their daughter was going through? What are your thoughts?
I'm going to call you out. You didn't say it. You said you're old parents, but I am an old parent and none of this stuff was around. It seems with you two, there's always been a foundation and a value system that's pretty solid. And you're both very aware of who you are as humans and who you are as parents. When you're watching what we're teaching, was there any aha moments for you like, oh my gosh, I could use that?
Well, I do think it's helpful. We have a son that's 23, and so their age difference, I think we are better parents to a 17-year-old than we were original to the first 17-year-old. And, so certainly we've made mistakes, said the wrong thing, reacted the wrong way, but we've always tried to, okay, what can we do better? How can we show our support in a positive way and not have the kid feel like we're saying you're not good enough? I mean, so it's not easy, but it's acknowledging that in the past I didn't handle this correctly. How can I change my tone or my way of correction so that it's not you're bad, you've made a mistake, or we can do this a different way. So it is, accepting role as parent and trying to just be better. Honestly, we've been around some parents who they view this as their opportunity to party. So our bar, we kind of started like, we're not at this tournament to go out at night, people. Maybe it's just sort of seeing that and knowing like that's not our purpose here. These kids need support. They need us in the hotel room at night if they need to talk about something, or if they just want quiet time but want to know someone's there. So, but that's why I say old parents, we had times where, we maybe should have reacted a different way, but we just try to learn from it and be better. And so
I think to add to that and to maybe go up like a level higher to the why, at the end of the day, I think our goal has always been, even before we had kids, because both kids were a decision, meaning we're going into this knowing we want to have a child, right? So the thought was, how can we produce people who are good, solid individuals who are contributing to society? Like, that is the thing. Like, how do we not go into retirement and have kids that we're worried about because they haven't been equipped to tackle the world? And so I think at the end of the day, like, that is the common thread for both kids. And the reason why we try to do what Stacia just described of getting it right, being vulnerable, making, figuring out where we went wrong and making adjustments is because at the end of the day, both Evan and her brother Mason need to be standalone citizens on this planet who are contributing positively and driving their own lives and making decisions and being choiceful about what they do, and not just kind of riding on the river of life and letting it take them wherever it's going to go. that how do they really be, how are they going to be captains of their own ship? And that's for both him and for her. Like they both need to drive their lives. And so what we do is try to give them the tools and the support to do that, because we joke about this all the time. We do not want to be the parents calling them up saying, what did you do and how did you do it? And you should have done it this way. Like that's not how we get down. We don't want to, we want to be the retired parents that are out having fun, traveling the world. And, we just talk to each other on Sundays. But I mean, that's the goal with both the kids. And so I think that's what fuels everything that Stacia talked about.
My vision for the book was I wanted to coach the parent so that they could coach the ones that they care about the most.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of the reading, and I listened to a lot of the podcasts, I didn't have the language for it. I didn't have the words that you use to describe actions, behaviors. But I had, I desired to set out on a course to be a better parent for an athlete. And so what are the things that I need to do and not do? I didn't want to ever be courtside and look, angry. And so, how do I adjust myself, or, if I'm feeling something, go to the bathroom for a second, or, what are the things that I can do to not detract from a positive experience for her? And also just accepting, we lose, we're going to lose. You're going to mess up, you're going to play bad. It's going to happen. And what are the things, and especially for our daughter, these 4 ingredients, the things that you can control so that you are prepared, so you're not losing because you didn't fuel yourself. That's a big theme in our house, that you didn't fuel yourself, so you can't concentrate, you can't focus. How are you prepared in the best way? So even if we lose, and we will, you can say, I did everything I could, and sometimes you lose. So it was just very reassuring for me. The things that were that I read and have listened to all make sense. They just sort of make me think, okay, yeah, this is the right way.
You have to have awareness to that. And you're just so aware of that. I think it's advantage that you didn't play sports.
I think so.
I'm listening to that because you've learned to leave the ego at the door, just to say. And I think that's the biggest challenge.
It starts at home. So as parents, part of our role is helping those parents understand the bigger picture. And by helping those parents understand the bigger picture, maybe that will then wash onto the player who's getting the same message on the court from you and the other, right? So there is a dynamic here. It's not a line between. We as parents, in order to have a good season, have to help influence those parents. Henry and Stacia, step up and use your voices in the huddle with the parents, which is not as easy, because it's not the structure of we're going to go huddle and talk to each other. It's harder with parents. But that's part of our role if we want to have a good season, is maybe to talk through some of that stuff.
It matters.
It matters.
It really matters.
Right? There's been a lot of years where parents, I think you could, ask parents around our club if they were telling their truth, what they think about Henry and I. They think we haven't had the struggles because Evan is very talented, so we don't have.
And if there's other struggles that are beyond that when you're at another level that they don't understand.
100%. But I would also say Evan shows up at practice every day. She trains outside of the gym. The girl works hard. I mean, is it easier for us because she's got that internal drive? Maybe so. I mean, that's what I will always defend against, is that it's not like she just walks through the door and everything's handed to her. That's not what happened here.
Doesn't happen anywhere.
No.
Really, the reason why we wanted to, join this conversation is it's healthy for parents. You two, have each other to talk to about this, but often we serve a lot of parents, right, of athletes that are struggling, that really want to get it right, that maybe have royally failed. And so within your most recent failure as parents, right, of how to best care for your athlete, whether she's wearing the volleyball uniform or she's wearing the student uniform or the 17-year-old uniform she's wearing, in your failures, right, where have you seen growth through adversity with her? And how have you come alongside of her in a powerful way that you feel comfortable sharing?
Growth through adversity. Um, Certainly watching her, her school season was difficult for her this year for various reasons. Successful but difficult. Watching her navigate that and supporting her through that. So being there when she needed to take issues, to escalate issues, right? That was phenomenal to allow her that space to do that and to see her get the benefit of having to have the hard conversations and think through how it was going to happen. um, it only brings us closer. And so allowing her though to work through those things is the important piece of it, not for us to figure it out for her, but to stand with her or behind her when she works through it. I think for me, that's the big takeaway.
Yeah. And I would say more and more, I have been challenging Evan to use some of these principles in terms of her school performance, test taking. It's the same type of preparedness, and that is going to lend towards success in other areas. And we had a conversation within the last 6 months or so about how confident she feels when she gets on the volleyball court. I mean, she has no sense of like, I'm anxious, I'm scared, I'm worried, none of that. And so how is it that you can take these things that you've learned and practiced and, you've really got a hold of and apply that when you have that presentation, stand in front of the class, when you have that big test, when you have a thing that makes you nervous at school? How is it that you can take these same principles and apply them? You can. Same thing. And so I do appreciate that there's that crossover and that we're starting to talk about that and incorporate that before she goes to college.
And thanks for sharing that, because I think when success happens or we're really good at something, we feel great. But when that challenge comes and adversity hits, and adversity can mean a lot of different things on and off the volleyball court, what is our strategy and our response? And
Yes.
so that power of response is you're getting to see, she's out of the home in a couple months, and then it's the real world.
Yes.
And so I'm excited to watch her journey. I'm excited to see her through this last club season. But the authenticity you both shared today, I know that I'm very thankful for, because it's you as parents, you have a community as well. You can talk about this, and to hear your version and how the values were given at such an early age, I know will help out a ton of people. Scott, do you have any closing thoughts, or Henry or Stacia, do you have any closing thoughts as well?
I learned today, and I appreciate your just complete honesty and vulnerability, and there's some really cool things that I could incorporate into my life. So, I really appreciate everything.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah,
having
thank you. Yeah, and we appreciate it too. I mean, it's not often we get to talk about Evan and our relationship with Evan in this way. Usually it's you're Evan's parents, yay, she's so nice, or she's done so much. So
Are
it's
you
it's
Evan's
nice
mom?
to yeah,
That's what people say.
you're right. So it's nice to talk about her in this way and the journey in this way. And if what we've done could help anybody in any way, that's great, because they don't give a manual when you become a volleyball parent. Like, there are no instructions.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that. Most think they just fall in line, and this is what I'm told, this is what I do. And your perspective has given a lot of, I don't know, a breath of fresh air. And there's a different way to do it. And it does take some unity between parents or whoever's in the household, right? The guardian, and that you can do this. and you are allowed to change. You're allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to grow with your athlete. And you learned really early on, it's not working if you are always in the driver's seat.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
And as a coach, thank you for not being in the driver's seat. We love it when athletes are in the driver's seat. So, Stacia, did you have anything else that you'd like to share?
I don't think so. But I appreciate all of this, and even sort of identifying. I know that talked to Evan about some other things that she can work on and expand her leadership role. And I think those are the ways for her to be challenged this season. I mean, it's one thing to be able to get the kills and the blocks and all of that, but what is your ability to rally your team or to help them with a reset when things are going down the tubes? That's also leadership. And so it's a prime opportunity for her with this team. So I'm looking forward to that. And I told her as much, and it's discomfort, but that's a good thing. And so it's going to be good. Looking forward to it.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Nice meeting you both.
Yeah, thank you guys. Physical abilities such as strength, speed, agility, endurance, and coordination are fundamental in sports. But mental abilities such as focus, concentration, motivation, confidence, resilience, and decision-making can heavily influence an athlete's performance, especially when it matters the most. If you want the mental edge in sport and life, check out the Max Out Mindset for Volleyball book and workbook, or the Max Out Mindset for Softball book and workbook. A guide for coaches, athletes, teams, and parents to help you be in the best position to max out when it matters the most. Go to www.maxoutmindset.com.
You are listening to Max Out Mindset with your host, Dr. Larry Widman, performance psychiatrist and elite mindset coach to women in sports, business, and life.